Welcome to the Good Hang podcast for your weekly dose of battery filling conversation with your hosts, Ariane and Julien.
What up?
And today our guest, MG.
What's up?
Megan George is
Megan
with
George.
us. We're really happy to have you. MG. We just gave you a new nickname.
I don't even know. I don't think I've been called that since high school.
Really?
Or high school, it was just George.
Really?
They would just
were
call
you
me
playing
George.
sports or something?
Not at all.
Not even?
Not at all. I was a ballerina. They called me George.
MG.
MG.
I was called by my last name as well.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah, Corrado, always.
Yeah. I don't know. I like it.
I like it too.
Yeah.
It's cool. So I'm excited to have you here today because it's funny. We're kind of new friends in a way. Like we've
Yes,
known
we
each
are.
other for a long time, but
Very adjacent circles.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then intentionally
Yes.
becoming friends has been a more recent thing, which
Yeah.
is pretty awesome. And it's something that I've been looking at in my life recently. A lot of patterns of, some people have like the same friends their whole lives versus I feel like I'm someone where I keep in touch with people, but there's parts of our lives where we'll meet and it just aligns really well, and then sometimes we'll lose each other for a little bit,
And then you come back.
you come back even more, how do I say, even it feels even stronger because it's like we choose to be in each
Yes.
other's lives again.
Yes.
So it's like initially we know each other from nightlife.
Yep.
Like used to come to Tokyo a lot.
Yes.
We have a lot
TBS.
of yes, Tokyo Bar Sundays. Where I was working there for like 10 years, and we have the Goon Tribe as mutual friends that
Yes.
have always been in my life. No matter, even if I don't see them, they're still in my life.
Yes.
And then recently, you had a switch in your career, and you took one of my workshops that I was doing a training. I think Julien, you took
I
it
took
as
one
well.
too, yeah.
Yes,
You did?
maybe you were in the
That's
same
awesome.
Yes, I
one.
did.
Because and that's so cool. Honestly, it makes me really happy because all the knowledge that I've had in social media for years that I shared with businesses, being able to share it with individuals who are trying to have a vision where they want to take their own personal brand and kind of having that aha moment through a workshop, or at least like a bit of an idea of where they're going to go next, has been like a really fun way of using that knowledge that I've had. So all this to say, from there, we went for dinner recently, and then we kind of talked. Actually, no, I reached out to her because recently she was on a podcast where she shared about having a shift in her career where the skill sets of being a travel agent, people didn't really understand how it translate in the corporate world.
Yeah.
And I really related to that. And I feel like you would too. Like we're all people that are very creative and self-made in many ways in what we do, so sometimes that doesn't translate so well in the business
In a
world.
corporate
So
environment.
you went from
Yeah.
flight attendant to
I went from flight attendant to starting my bachelor's in political science to real estate broker and project manager. And clearly I'm single with no kids. Because I got time. But yeah, to your point, I think that it was great to connect. I think that there's something to be said for making adult friends, choosing them, and being like, hey, there's something about you that makes me feel a certain way, and I want to lean into that. So that was a thing. And yeah, that transition, like you said, of doing something and then trying to go into a more corporate environment, and corporate just not understanding how you fit into that world. And then that's a huge reality check because you kind of realize that you can be in your mid 30s and suddenly you're back at the bottom of the totem pole. And it's heavy. And then it's, okay, I'm the person anyway that it's like, okay, what's next? Okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to build on this? But during COVID, being a flight attendant became obsolete.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of my colleagues have to, like, dare I say, go bag groceries. Do you know what I mean? Because you're just like in a limbo of, is my job coming back? And then you're going out there trying to see where do you fit in. And you realize that being a flight attendant isn't just a job, it's a lifestyle. So you've kind of been sucked out into a different part of society. And then you're trying to fit back into the rat race, and you're just trying to catch Tony Lang to like get back onto the, and it's a thing. It's a real thing.
You have pinpointed my reality in a very it's I speak to Ariane a lot. and you realize like you're not alone when you share, but I'm meeting you and you just describe my reality so well. And it's so scary because it's like you don't want to necessarily have your job be your personality.
Yeah.
Or not your personality, but your identity, which are two separate things. You don't want either. But I mean, for it, for it to become a part of your identity, and then it gets taken away, and then on top of it, it's like you live in a vacuum, and then who are you in a vacuum when you take away such a big part of your identity? For me, it was music. It's like music didn't become obsolete, but you couldn't perform, you couldn't do anything, and we pushed and pushed and pushed. But at the same time, I was like, who am I in a vacuum? Like, who cares?
100%.
And do I care? And like, what do I care about? And then it's like, I think I had to actively almost break that part of my identity and being like, okay, I am not my job. I am not what I've wanted to do. But then what do you want to do?
Doesn't it feel like that moment when you're in high school and you have to go see a guidance counselor to kind of like take the test to be like, okay, so like check all the things, and then the guidance counselor looks at it and tells you you're supposed to be a mechanic.
I used to kind of, so Ariane and I spoke about being people pleasers. And it's like, in one episode I spoke about how I like fitting in, and I realized like, I'm sure I fit in a certain way, and other ways I felt like I didn't fit in. But the people pleasing aspect, it's like every time we had those tests, I was like, how can I answer this to what I know like my parents would like me to be? So I feel like all of those tests I answered as someone else.
I totally get that. What
about you? What would the test?
I would even say like moment of vulnerability. I still feel like that sometimes.
100%.
Like, and I think that it's one of those things about, I recently had a really heavy thought process about adaptability and code switching and being a chameleon and like the positive and negative connotations that come with that. But I think that, to your point, it all kind of ties back down to the people pleasing aspect of it. And like, I feel it in work. I feel it working in customer service, like is basically what we're doing. Like we're trying to create those moments instantly with someone of like, I see you, you know what I mean? And like relatability.
But which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Like, to be able to see, first of all, to seek out connection. Second of all, to develop a talent and being able to connect
100%.
quickly. But
there's a dark side to it.
Of course, it's like to the detriment of yourself.
100%.
And then in those moments, it's like, well, who am I?
100%. And I feel that like it comes out a lot. We spoke about this, like I've been dating again. And it comes out even in that at points, like in the dating, I feel like that's one of those real things where you kind of see how the people pleasing, and you meet someone and you're like, oh my God, you like French toast? I love French toast too. Meanwhile, back at the farm, you're like,
well, like you said, it's like a plus because it's funny because I have friends who'll go, I don't know how you do it to date. You know, we talked about this where they're like, I could never. And you're like, can't you have a conversation with a stranger? Like I have conversations.
100%.
I used to have a business. I can get along with anyone. Like, what are you talking about? You can't speak to someone
if you don't have stories.
No,
then
like I can find a way to connect. Like with, and it's funny because I saw a TikTok yesterday, and it was like, if you find a girl who won't shut up, you're so lucky, because it's hard to find with like to date someone who has something interesting to say all the time. And I was like, thanks. Okay, but
it's true though.
But it's like I'll go on a date and I'll like for sure find a way to connect with the person. But then you're like, it's almost like you're like, wait, did I go on a date for the person to like me and for me to be like, check, someone else is like another person for the Ariane shtick, you know? But or do I go in and I go, okay, what do I want to know about this person? Like and where, you know, how do I decide if I'm interested in this person or not? Or does this come 6 dates later where I'm like, hey, this person's locked in. Now I can decide.
Exactly.
You know? It's
funny because I saw something similar, a post, and it was basically a stand-up comedian, and he was running a joke on like a narcissist, and a narcissist goes on a date and then he goes back home and they're like, so how was the date? And he was like, obviously it was great. I was there. Like, but it kind of all goes back to like that place of the people pleasing aspect. So again, circling back, when you're trying to like figure out where do I fit in a corporate environment, where do I fit in as a grown adult in a working scheme of things, there's a moment of like, okay, but what do I really want to do? Like the whole process of like, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Okay, but like for real though, like what am I doing? So it's an interesting conversation that I didn't have to have with myself really. I became a flight attendant. I experienced the Dawson shooting and I dropped out of CJAP.
We were both there.
Yeah. And
really?
You dropped it, yeah.
I dropped out of CJAP. It's not funny. It's one of those things of I was at the Dawson shooting. I went back to school, and then maybe a week later, someone was in the cafeteria playing dominoes and screamed, and everyone was so PTSD that people ran and hid. And that time I was in the school, and I remember hiding under a bench, and I literally called my mom, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't be here. I can't learn. Like I'm literally, I'd never experienced that before. And I was dating a guy at the time and his neighbor was a flight attendant. And that's how it just sort of like, when life happens, like life happened and I became a flight attendant. And now it's been 17 years of my life.
Wow.
So it's one of those things of like on year 15, your world crumbles. What are we doing?
Yeah, what do we do now?
What are we doing?
And with all this time to sit and think of the possibilities that you could have done, could do in the future, but
it's also, we're talking about, that sometimes feeling misunderstood, like we don't fit in the corporate world. And we talk about this sometimes where it's so easy to feel judged by others, but we obviously judge too. Because in the end, in an office, it's just people. Anywhere you go is just people. Everyone is just people, And sometimes you're like, okay, maybe people have an easier time of fitting in the mold, but like you end up somewhat like judging, like how can I be like them? When really they're all individuals. They're not like, an attroupement like of people. But I think it's hard sometimes to figure that out. And then you're wondering, are those people just better at fitting in than I am? Or do I have so much judgment that of what I don't want to be like or this and that?
I totally know what you mean because I had a lot of friends that like they just had jobs during COVID. They were just like, I work from home now. And I was like, wow, must be nice. Like, what does that feel like to just have that kind of security in your life? And then you start questioning all your life choices. Like, did I fuck up? Like, did I sort of like not do what was the path that is the right one by just going outside and like traveling? Like, where am I now with all of that? Like, trying to figure out how I'm gonna pay my phone bill. Like,
it's funny too that work from
groceries are more expensive.
100.
Okay.
What are we gonna do about it?
Even more
all
expensive?
the fears that my parents have always had my whole life that I would like, I'm never going to be like this. Then I really started to feel them. But the work from home thing is funny too, because it became, everyone had a different job where they would go and they had a different career. And then the other day I was at a comedy show and the comedian asking people like, so what do you do for a living? And the guy went, télétravail. And I thought it was so funny because like he's so removed from the identity of what his job is.
His actual job.
It's work from home. Like that's what I do.
But
and that's how it feels.
I'm just realizing everyone just answers emails. It's just, who am I going to answer emails for?
Yeah. Whether you work in music or comedy, or it's all the same job.
It's just like,
it's like coordinating
to whoever
emails
about whatever and like, let me send you here.
Yeah.
Yep.
But to lead back to the security thing, for sure, like what is it? December 2019. Yeah. I learned that my wife is pregnant and I'm a musician. I'm like, okay, I knew this day was going to come, but this is going to be a ride and a half, but it's okay.
What year? When did you say?
2019.
So before
3 months before the pandemic.
Yes.
And then COVID hit, and then I lost my job. I lost, music, like there's no touring, but it's also the not knowing for how long, and then the questions within myself, but of other people asking, so what are you going to do now? You have a kid on the way. What are you going to do for work? And it's like having to put a front and being like, I'll figure it out, but I'll figure it out about becoming a dad. I'll figure it out about what I'm going to do for money. I'll figure it out for this. And you're going, wow, I'm lost.
When people ask questions like that, there's always a moment of me that's just like, my guy, I know.
Yeah. Like you think
I'm not like up at night tripping like
hard.
I know.
It's funny because we were just talking about the people pleasing thing, and you mentioned thinking about what your parents would want you to do. And I just got off the phone with my mom. So my sister might be having a baby tonight. So
stop it.
Yeah. So,
and not us being here.
So we kind of got into a conversation. My mom said that she was speaking to someone and she was trying to figure out how we could connect more moving forward and have a better relationship. And it's something that I've been thinking about. And I admitted to her, I said, when you worry about me, it makes me feel like I didn't do a good job at creating a safe life where you don't have to worry about me. And I know that for you, it's like your job to worry about me.
Yeah, it's like a forever thing.
But it makes me feel like I'm bad.
Inadequate.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it just kind of hit me. And I was like, I know you mean well by checking on me, but I almost want you to treat me like, I'm crushing it.
100%. Like, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And like, I'm now mid-30s and my mom and I have gone to therapy together, which in itself is a blessing to be old enough to be able to fix your relationship with your parent.
Absolutely.
And that was definitely one of the things that we talked about, just about like, hey girl, like, could you trust me? Could you have your panic attack with your friends or have your panic attack in your safe space? But when you come to me right now, I need a cheerleader. I need someone who's going to rally behind me. To your point of like the questions that I know, like I'm the one that's going through it. I'm the one that sees the money in my bank account dwindling while life is still lifing hard. So I totally get that moment of just like, hey, like, can you show up and cheerlead? And then when I cross this obstacle, then we can be like, girl, that was crazy.
Interesting. Once we cross that obstacle.
Then you can share with me all your fears, and I'll be like, yeah, I was tripping out too.
Yes.
Like, I can't believe I overcame that. But in the midst of it, trust. I know.
Absolutely.
Like I'm
I
aware.
don't need a reminder of what's going on.
And like when it comes from your mom or from a parent, I feel like it hits even harder because there's a sense of like, I don't care how old you are. I don't care how hard you are. That sort of validation or feeling of like, I might potentially be disappointing you. It's like an underlying part of the relationship of parent and child. So like, no, like I really don't need this extra thing on my plate right now as I'm trying to just keep my head above. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, as a parent now, I realize that it's true that the worrying never stops. And my daughters are 3.5 and 1.5. So it's completely different in the sense of, it's not the same reality as if you're in your mid-30s. So, in that sense, I don't know what I'm talking about. But more the being aware that no matter how hard I try, my daughters will most likely have some sort of issue with me.
Yeah.
And I try every day to be present, like not just physically, but emotionally with my daughters to see what it is that they need from me, and I'm learning so much through them because it's like I look back on, let's say my father, like if I was going through a phase or something, I mean, my father was always there for me, but it's more like when we were kids, like I would make him nervous. So he would get nervous and get angry. And it's just like he wants it all to stop because he doesn't want to get nervous. And sometimes you interpret that as like, or I guess the father doesn't necessarily realize how strong that can affect a child, you know, and I see it with my children. And sometimes it's like, okay, I don't realize how rough I can be when I'm nervous.
Yeah.
And they can pick up on that. So all of a sudden it's like you have to be in tune with yourself, but keep a distance for you, but for your children too, and for your partner as well. That's what I'm realizing. Like, it's like we all have these stresses, and sometimes I rather have someone who cares, like ask me the tough questions.
Yeah.
But sometimes you want to say like, hold on a second.
Yeah.
You know, but that communication I think is
key.
It's the hardest thing, but I mean,
but it's also like the generational differences. It's part of overcoming and being able to reach that level of communication. Like, don't get me wrong. I feel like the kids today probably low-key blessing. I feel like we're the generation that's starting the whole like we're gonna fix our traumas and we're gonna emotional intelligence, and do you know what I mean? Like, we have all these words that have become an intricate part of our vernacular and our fabric of who we are as people that weren't necessarily at the forefront of our parents' vernacular of how they went about things. So yeah, I think that like we do have a bigger sense of awareness of like, oh shit, I think I need to go apologize to my kid.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm actually going to apologize to them and not just take them out for a Happy Meal. Like, I'm actually going to give them that, like, I'm sorry, I will, like, do you know what I mean? Like that moment, which, yeah, it's like that maybe went under the radar a bit more for older generations. And
I guess they were doing the best that they could with the tools that they
100%.
had. And as are we. And
100%.
I mean, every generation hopefully
more tools
strives to get better. Yeah, more
tools.
More growth.
100%.
And with more tools, though, it's like when all the tools are there, it becomes on you to use them.
No better, do better.
Yeah, no
better, do better. Like, period. No better, do better. Look at us.
I love that.
Look at us on a journey.
So I have a question about, you know, you've traveled the world.
Yes.
Like, what are places where you've been that like kind of blew you away or had a special energy to
connection
it?
I'd say my top 3 are Portugal. It just feels so light, and no one's like, they live in this beautiful country full of history, and they are the most like unpretentious people I've ever met. I also backpacked after a breakup from a really long relationship. That was like my first like, girl, we're going outside.
Like, eat, pray, love moment?
It was my eat, pray, love moment. And so it has this special place in my heart forever and always because of that.
So wait, where did you go backpacking?
Portugal.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
That was the trip. So that was like a top tier.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
I recently went to Newfoundland with my mom on like, I tried to take her somewhere for her birthday. And guys, Newfoundland is really special. And it's like literally our backyard. Yeah. And there's just something there that's just, the people are, I cried. Like, the people are just absolutely lovely. And they're just so sustainable and conscious of like, there's this connectivity with nature and what they eat, what they like, everything. It's just, it's absolutely beautiful.
What you take out, you put back.
100%. And there's such respect for the land and their history. And Newfoundland was special. We went to Fogo in particular, and it was a really special experience.
Island?
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah. I haven't been, but I have a friend that went. And
and there's this hotel there. And just everything is about sustainability, and that was a great experience. And then probably like Bali, I cry.
Me
like,
too.
When I have those moments of just like literally and that's why, again, the whole shift to corporate world was so hard, because you have these moments where you're like, I'm in Bali. Like, what are the life choices that I have made to get me to this point? And then feeling that immense sense of feeling grateful. And then you're just like, I must have done something right. And I just hear like gospel in my head, like, how did we get here? And yeah, like you camping in Iceland. And I'm just like, girl, you're camping in Iceland. And then as a Black woman, it hits me double time because most of the times that I'm doing this, there's only one of me.
Yeah.
Like, so it hits double time of like we're outside and like, it's that has been immense feeling. Exactly that. So, and the life choices that I've made. So that again, like when you're thinking about like the corporate and the rat race and like, oh yeah, but these people right now, they have job security, but they ain't never camped in Norway.
Absolutely.
They ain't never been to Bali.
For every choice, it's like you pick up your choice, but there's also there's the other side of that medal, you know, and stability. If you pick up the stability, but you have no spontaneity, it's you got to be aware of you know what comes with that choice.
It's finding that balance. I said in one of the other podcasts, because a coach said it to me, it's like 1 foot in gratitude and 1 foot in desire. So you could be grateful for the safety that you have, but then still want more. And then you could be grateful for living a life of adventure, but also want stability and create an income and believe that both things can be too, you know?
That's been one of the biggest teachings these days for me, is that duality and learning that if you are one, it doesn't mean that you are not the other.
Yes.
And as a mixed child, like, so my mom was Egyptian and my dad is American, but of Italian descent. And growing up, it's like you feel like you're neither. My brother, my sister, and I were like, this is what we are. And then you go on one side of the family, like, well, you're not this. And you go to the other side, well, you're not that. And your friends say you're one thing. You're never what it seems. You're always something else. You can fit in, but you don't feel like you fit in. Bref.
Yeah.
All this to say, it's like you had to pick one identity.
Yeah.
But you really don't. You're just you know, and you take of all these things, and it creates all these facets. You know, you don't, that interdimensionality. You don't have to be just that one thing.
Yeah. And I think that is it's so factual, but it's so hard sometimes to translate into real life.
Absolutely.
Because like in a situation like this, like we're sitting here, we're real people, we're having a conversation. We understand that, to your point, we all have duality and we're all multidimensional. That being said, when you go into the workforce, circling back to like when you're trying to get into that rat race, they aren't interested necessarily in your duality or your multifaceted self.
Yeah, how
they
do you
want
sell yourself as
that's exactly
one
it.
Desirable.
They want
Simplify
to know
what you are so people understand it. Put yourself in the box that I can
that I can manage, not control, but manage. What department can I fit you in that this boss and you are going to click? You're going to do the work. You're going to show up. You're going to do your job, and you're going to do it well and efficiently every single day. So it's outside self. Outside world, outside of work, you're like, I'm all these beautiful things. I'm, you know, and then you go to work and it's like, okay, but can you do this? And can you do it every day? And can you do it on time? And can you deliver? So I think that like, that's to your point of like the crux of the conversation of, I want to be a creative. I want to be able to go out there and live my most authentic life. How do you do both those things at the same time? And that's the battle sometimes.
That's
period.
the challenge.
100%.
But I think it's also deconstructing that story that they can't coexist. And we all, like, whether it's our parents who taught us that, whether it's television, whatever, it's like it's, you know, starting to look out for people who live a life of creativity and safety, or maybe they have a corporate job but then have their passion as well, because those people exist. And the more you seek them out, the more you see like a world of possibilities. I know we have to wrap this up. There's so much more I'd like to talk about, but there's one question I want to ask you is, what do you want to attract for yourself in the next year?
Oh man, that's a really good question. And it's a really good question because I'm still sort of taking stock of my last year, and I'm trying to, I never want to get caught in the reproducing of something. Like, if it worked, cool. How do I build upon it and not just try to do the same thing again? So I'm still actually trying to figure that out. But one thing that I know for sure that has been at the forefront of my mind and my relationships recently has been community. I just feel like, if I'm being very self-aware, it's something that I'm the people pleasing, going back to that. I'm very good at having different groups of friends, and I want to build community in a real way for myself this year. I want to give back to my community in a real way this year. I feel like I have had the privilege and the luxury, because my mom has worked very hard to put me in situations where I didn't have to experience certain hardships. And I want to find a way to connect. I want to find a way to feel, to give back, to, I have like all of these thoughts of just like, how can I be a part of my culture in a real way that I feel like I'm a part of something that I'm a part of. And I know that was just the most redundant sentence, but if you get it, you get it.
If you get it, you get it.
If the hat fits, then it's for you. But that's something that's really important to me this year moving forward, that I want to build upon that sense of community and that feeling of, and I see like all of this, do you know what I mean? Like, being able to sit down and have these conversations and lead with authenticity and vulnerability and just rebuild whatever I feel like we've been robbed of sometimes. Like, I just want more of that for myself, and I want to lean into that. It's what I try to bring into real estate every time I work with a client, of just like, I got you. We got us. What are we? Do you know what I mean?
Got us.
We got us. What are we? How can we help each other? Because I feel like there's so many forces that it's their one job is to make sure that we don't got us. Do you know what I mean? So how do we overcome that in a real way? And how do we build something that this becomes the new norm? Yeah. So that was a long-winded answer.
I love it.
If you get it, you get it. And if you don't, it's not for you.
I'm really aligned with it. And I look forward to like following you on this journey.
Thanks.
And you were a wonderful guest, Megan.
Thank you
for having us.
very, very much.
What a great time.
Thank you for having me. I'm like, there's a moment of like awkwardness, and then I'll always like, it just like loosens up, and you're like, oh, safe space.
This is all grateful.
Safe space.
And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.